Right now, somewhere in a Chinese server room, a transaction is being settled. Not through SWIFT, not in dollars, through a system China began building 20 years ago, quietly, patiently, and in full view of the world. Nobody paid attention. That was the plan. In 2003, the United States invaded Iraq. Within days, it froze Saddam Hussein's dollar denominated reserves, billions of dollars gone overnight by executive order. China watched. It drew a single clear conclusion: dependence on the dollar is not just a financial decision, it is a national security risk. Any country whose reserves, trade, and banking system run through the dollar system can be switched off by Washington. China began building in 2005. Not a rival currency, not a better dollar, something different entirely. A parallel system, one that could function without American permission. 20 years later, that system exists. And the Iran conflict just gave it its first live test. Three things. First, the payments network. Second, the oil market. Third, the relationships. First, CIPS, the cross-border interbank payment system, launched in 2015. SWIFT, the network that moves dollars between banks, is operated under Western oversight. In 2022, when the United States sanctioned Russia, it expelled Russian banks from SWIFT in 72 hours. Cut off from SWIFT means cut off from most of global trade. China watched and accelerated CIPS. By 2024, CIPS had connected over 100 countries. It is not as large as SWIFT. It does not need to be. It only needs to be large enough to be useful. It is already that. Second, Yuan oil. In 2018, China launched the Shanghai Oil Futures contract, priced in yuan. Saudi Arabia resisted for years. Then, in 2023, the first yuan-denominated Saudi oil trade was completed. The volume was small. The signal was not. Once a single major producer accepts yuan for oil, others watch. The petrodollar was built the same way, one country at a time. Third, the relationships. 150 countries, ports, railways, pipelines, over $1 trillion in Belt and Road infrastructure. Each project is not just an economic asset, it is a relationship, denominated in Chinese lending and, increasingly, Chinese yuan. Build enough of those relationships and you do not need to defeat the dollar. You simply offer the world something it can use instead. Now for the move most analysts underestimated. Since 2009, China has been accumulating gold at a pace with no modern precedent. The People's Bank of China has added more gold to its reserves in the last decade than any other central bank on earth. Russia did the same. So did India. So did Turkey, Poland, and Singapore. The question worth asking is, why now? The answer is not mysterious. A reserve currency requires trust. Trust that the country issuing it will not weaponize it against you. When the United States froze $300 billion of Russian reserves in 2022, it answered a question that had been theoretical for decades. Can America use the dollar as a weapon against any country it chooses? The answer was yes. Gold cannot be frozen. Gold cannot be sanctioned. Gold cannot be expelled from a payment network. It is the one reserve asset that exists entirely outside the dollar system. China is not betting that gold replaces the dollar tomorrow. China is ensuring that when dollar dominance eventually weakens, as all reserve currencies do, the yuan will have what it currently lacks, a credible store of value behind it. That is the same foundation the dollar was built on before 1971. China is rebuilding it, deliberately, in gold. If this channel is the kind of analysis you look for, subscribe. We publish a new explainer every week. Here is what is actually happening with Belt and Road that most explainers get wrong. It is not generosity. It is not development aid. It is financial architecture. When China finances a port in Sri Lanka, a railway in Ethiopia, or an energy pipeline in Pakistan, the loan is denominated in yuan. The contracts require yuan payments. The supply chains run through China. By the time the infrastructure is operational, the receiving country has built a yuan-denominated economic relationship, whether it intended to or not. This is how financial systems expand. Not through force, through dependency. The United States built the same architecture after World War II: the Marshall Plan, Bretton Woods, the IMF. The difference is that China is doing it in the countries America largely ignored: the Gulf, Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America. The regions where the next 50 years of global economic growth will occur. China is not trying to win the developed world away from the dollar. It is building the financial infrastructure of the developing world, and it has a 20-year head start. Now, for the part most explainers get wrong, China is not close to replacing the dollar, not yet. The yuan accounts for roughly 4% of global foreign exchange reserves. The dollar accounts for nearly 60. CIPS processes a fraction of SWIFT's volume. The majority of global oil is still priced in dollars. But here is the counter argument, and it is strong. China does not need to replace the dollar globally. It only needs to build a system large enough to give the world a genuine choice, a functioning alternative, one that works for the countries that matter most to China's strategy. The nations currently using CIPS are not in Europe or North America. They are in the regions where yuan adoption is already underway, where infrastructure loans have been taken, where oil is beginning to trade in yuan, where gold reserves are accumulating as a hedge against the dollar. The dollar is not losing its reserve status this year. The yuan is not taking over next year, but the trajectory, slow at the center, fast at the edges, is now visible. And trajectories, once established over 20 years, do not reverse easily. The Iran conflict did not start China's plan, it accelerated it. When Iranian oil began moving through the Strait of Hormuz in yuan, not dollars, it was not an improvisation. It was a proof of concept, a live demonstration in one of the most contested waterways on Earth that the system China spent 20 years building actually works. The question is not whether China intends to challenge the dollar. That question was answered 20 years ago. The question is how fast the parallel system grows, and whether the United States continues to give the world more reasons to use it.